how and why to control your weight as you grow older. Next on Age-Wise. Hello, I'm Ed Rosenberg and welcome to Age-Wise. As we age, our bodies change, our metabolism slows, we become less active, we often pay less attention to our appearance. And most of us gain weight, even when we know that excessive weight can raise serious health issues. Our topic this week is how to manage our weight. Our guests are Dr. Ann Moody of App State's Health and Exercise Science Department and Jennifer Teague, Director of Boone's Lois E. Harrell Senior Center. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
You know, I remember when I was younger, when I was in high school and college, I played football and I ran track, and every fall I'd put on 15 pounds for football, and every spring I'd lose 15 pounds for track. And even after college, that happened. And then when I turned 30, I put on the 15 pounds and they never went away again. Ann, is that normal?
It is. You know, with aging, we see a natural progression in terms of weight gain, unfortunately. And so it's something that with aging, people tend to have to work a little bit harder to maintain the weight that they were, 20 years ago. So it can be certainly a challenge. With aging, we see, increases in body fat, decreases in muscle. So again, we have to work a little bit harder with the aging process.
So we need to keep our weight within a normal range, but how do we know what normal is?
Sure. So an easy assessment of weight is something called BMI, which stands for Body Mass Index. You can actually go online and check your own BMI. Go to Google, type in BMI calculator. It asks you to put in your height and weight, and it will show you what is a normal range, and then what would be considered underweight, overweight, etc. So that's an easy way just for any person to figure out where they fall in terms of their weight category. And
we know that I think a BMI of over 30 is considered obese, and under 18.5 is considered underweight. We know that obesity is a big problem in America. We hear a lot about that. Is being underweight, can that be a problem as well?
Sure. Yeah, underweight is a problem as well. It's not probably talked about as commonly as being overweight or obese, because we don't see it to be quite as common, especially sort of in younger years. But with aging, we can certainly see, people having some issues with being underweight as well. So we really do want people to be as close to that normal weight category as possible, not being at one extreme or the other. So not being underweight, not being overweight or obese.
Well, and you and I are in the ivory tower, but Jen is actually out there in the real world. She's the boots on the ground. She's working with senior citizens, with older people on a daily basis. Do you notice weight issues among the clientele? Are there people who are too heavy? Are there people who you think may be even a little undernourished? Are they aware of these things?
They are. It is a big aspect of what we deal with and what we talk about at the Senior Center. Typically, we tend to see people who are overweight as well. And oftentimes that could be based on malnourishment. The foods that they have access to may not be as healthy or as able to maintain a good weight. On occasion, we may see people who are underweight, but we do really see a lot of individuals who struggle with gaining that weight in older life. And I think part of that is also just due to lack of activity as much as it is to do with food that they eat.
So you think people cut back on their physical activity as they get older. Ann, is that something that just happens naturally with aging, or is it a result of other factors that lead people to decide not to be so active?
Yeah, so we tend to see, especially over the age of 65, that decrease in activity is where we, really start to see that occur. Once we get to the age of 85, it's even more pronounced. So it does seem to be a little bit of a natural occurrence. And there can also be some other sort of contributing factors as well in terms of why people become less active. We think about all of the natural occurrences that occur to our body during aging. There's a lot of discomfort, just sort of aches and pains with aging. So that can lead to some discomfort with exercise. So it's more about finding the type of exercise that works best for that individual, something that's comfortable, something that they can maintain and hopefully enjoy as well.
Jen, can people who come to the senior center find opportunities for physical activity that might help them control their weight?
They can, and that's a huge aspect of what we do. And I get a lot of requests of people who come in and say, I want to lose a little bit of weight. I've seen an increase in weight gain since I've stopped working. So at the senior center, we have an exercise room. We have quite a bit of exercise equipment. We also offer about 4 exercise classes a day that range from chair-based classes to Zumba Gold, Tai Chi, and yoga. Really, it's kind of something for everyone and gives people of all levels an opportunity to continue to exercise and work out. Even those individuals who maybe can't do a full class of Zumba Gold can at least come to a chair-based class for 30 minutes and work upper body and lower body.
So even if people may be a little unsteady, they might be afraid if I exercise I'm going to fall. Mm-hmm. There are exercise programs for them as well, such as the chair-based exercise. And it seems that your gamut of exercises work on strength and flexibility, like yoga, and balance and mm-hmm. endurance. So you're covering the gamut of fitness there. Yeah. So we know exercise can help us maintain weight. And how about nutrition? How does that contribute to keeping us in an acceptable weight range?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, nutrition is probably the biggest aspect in terms of weight loss and weight management. Exercise certainly being important as well, but nutrition really has to be a primary focus in order for a person to be successful in terms of maintaining a healthy weight and losing weight, if that's a goal of theirs.
If I want to lose weight, can I just exercise more? And mm-hmm. because people live to eat or eat to live.
Sure.
I live to eat, so I'd rather exercise more than change my diet. Is that okay?
So the problem that we see in terms of that perspective, saying, well, I would just like to exercise and not change my diet. We know that a person who walks a mile on average is going to burn about 100 calories. So the problem is that a person has to do a large amount of exercise really in order to see any effect in terms of their weight. It's usually more than most people have time to do or are just willing to do. So it has to be a large load in order to make a difference. So really the diet aspect is going to give a lot of bang for your buck. Just reducing portion sizes alone can have a great impact in terms of seeing some changes with weight.
So I may not have to completely give up chocolate, I can just cut back on it?
Sure, absolutely. Portion control alone can have a great effect even if you don't change any of the foods that you're eating.
Okay. Jen, how about nutrition at the senior center?
It is a big focus as well. We are a congregate nutrition site, and we also do home delivered meals. And part of what we do at the center site specifically is we do nutrition education classes about once a week. We have dietitians or different individuals come in and talk about healthy eating, healthy weight. How to eat on a budget is a big thing. Plus, our congregate nutrition site, we have to have those menus created by a registered dietitian, so they have to meet certain RDA dietary guidelines and restrictions, and so we follow those with all of our meals that we bring out at lunchtime.
Okay, now I know that at App State there actually is a course on weight management, mm-hmm. But Dr. Moody, you teach one on lifestyle disease and risk reduction. Mm-hmm. Does that include anything about weight management?
It does. We do cover weight management as well as some other issues that can accompany being overweight or obese, especially for long periods of time. We know that chronically being obese, so meaning being obese for many years over a person's lifetime, typically does accompany some other health complications as well. such as diabetes, such as heart disease as well. Those can commonly occur alongside. So we sort of focus on a whole approach in terms of not only talking about weight, but talking about other issues as well that can accompany that.
Now here's a $64,000 question. Do these exercise science and health promotion courses include a focus on the older population or not?
Yeah, sure. So we do, in the course that I teach, we do cover an aging section, and so talking about weight as well as some other things that can occur with aging, how to prevent or at least delay those changes from occurring, and more so how to include components of diet and exercise to just improve quality of life. We know that aging is inevitable, but there are at least some things that we can do to sort of delay some of the changes that can occur.
Now, Jen, one of the nice things about the Senior Center and about App State having health promotion, exercise science programs is that you can serve as a site for students to do internships. If an older person chooses to go to the Senior Center and wants to do a little bit of exercise work or talk about nutrition, can these folks expect that there will be student interns there who can help them develop an appropriate program for them?
There is. We typically do have an intern, usually from the Health Promotions Department at Appalachian State. In addition, we work closely with Margie Mansher, who is a registered dietitian with the Cooperative Extension. And then also I want to make sure to mention that we have a Living Healthy class, which is really focused on weight management, healthy exercise, making good lifestyle decisions, and helping you deal with any chronic diseases that may be coming up. And those are all evidence-based health promotion classes that we're able to offer. So I really think it can help individuals develop a good plan for themselves. My hope is that more people will come and see what all opportunities that we have available. Even if it's just using the exercise equipment, if a class isn't necessarily something that they're interested in, but they can just come and ride the bike or work out on the treadmill, or do something that kind of fits their needs.
Well, one of the things that I think was mentioned in passing is that some people with weight management issues have been dealing with these issues for decades. They have always had a difficult time getting up to an appropriate weight or getting down to an appropriate weight. So there can be chronic issues, but there can also be weight management issues that come about perhaps in midlife or with the onset of old age for different reasons. And what could be some of the precipitating factors if someone in his or her 50s or 60s or 70s suddenly begins losing a lot of weight or gaining a lot of weight?
Sure. Yeah, so we also know that a person's metabolism decreases with aging. Basically meaning that a person doesn't burn calories quite as easily as they used to. Again, just a natural occurrence of aging that we see. Also, along with that, we do see some decreases in muscle mass. Muscle helps a person to burn calories. So the less muscle we have, again, sort of the less calories being burned. So really, maintaining muscle mass throughout the lifetime is going to be helpful for helping to keep some weight off. We want people to, be doing exercises that increase their heart rate a little bit. Even if a person can only do 10 minutes a day, we see that to still be beneficial for overall health. And again, to see effects of weight loss, of course, we know we're going to have to do a little bit of activity. Doing things such as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, being active at home, gardening, anything that keeps a person moving is going to help, burn some calories throughout the day, keeping them active and healthy.
I'm glad you mentioned those little things, taking the stairs rather than the elevator.
Yeah.
Jen, probably if someone goes to the Senior Center, they could park at the far end of the parking lot instead of the close end of the parking lot. Just walking there and back would be helpful to them. Jen, do you, since you work with older people at the Senior Center, some of them are experiencing life changes. It may be retirement from a job, it may be the loss of a spouse, it may be having to move from their home into a congregate care facility. Do you think any of these life changes themselves could change people's eating and activity patterns to bring on a weight problem?
Definitely. I actually used to do grief counseling before I started at the senior center, and whenever someone loses a spouse or a loved one, that is one of the main precipitating factors that changes what they eat. Because oftentimes people, when they're cooking for one, stop cooking. They may eat a lot more frozen meals, they may eat nothing, they may eat cereal for every meal or go to fast food. So those types of changes definitely impact people's lifestyles. And what we really see is whenever individuals move from their home into a congregate site, the majority of the time they actually start being healthier because they have 3 meals a day provided for them, versus where when they're at home they may not have other meals. And as you mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, just talking about taking better care of ourselves, I think whenever people lose a spouse or they retire, they stop going to work, they really do kind of stop taking care of themselves. So senior centers or congregate sites like that are a good opportunity for people to still have pride in themselves, encourage them to get out. Even if coming into the center is their only exercise, it's still walking in, it's still socializing with others, and gives them a purpose and a meaning to get up.
So you know, even if they just come to the senior center for lunch, they're getting a nutritious meal and they're getting some social interaction, which is very important. When we go through some of these life changes, there's a lot of emotional upheaval, a lot of stress to deal with, and often one way people deal with stress is through food. They either don't eat or they eat too much, or through physical activity. They either stop doing something or they start doing something obsessively. And I was surprised to discover that we hear about obesity as such a problem, and in fact, a quarter of older Americans fall into the obesity range according to the body mass index. Yet it wasn't until 2013 that the American Medical Association recognized obesity as a medical condition, as a disease. Why do you think it took the AMA so long to come around to this viewpoint?
Sure. Yeah, I think obesity in terms of we consider it an epidemic now. So meaning we have a large percentage of the population in a condition of being overweight or obese. And so the research is really fairly new in terms of understanding obesity, understanding what causes it, what exactly is going on in the body in terms of physical changes. So I think just that understanding, kind of getting a grasp of obesity, as an actual disease, figuring out, physiologically what's going on, I think has been pretty recent. And so I think the medical community is now realizing, it's not just, a person having a little bit too much weight on their body. There's a lot going on in terms of, affecting vital organs, in terms of the person's heart, brain function, etc. So a lot of other conditions have been shown to be a problem as well.
And Jen, go ahead.
I just want to add in too, it's adding additional weight to their knees, their ankles, and their feet, which is already a huge issue that so many of our older adults deal with. So taking off 10 pounds or even 5 pounds can make huge differences in the amount of weight being on their knees and ankles.
Do you, if you hear people at the senior center, Jen, interacting and maybe they're talking about putting on weight or losing weight, do they tend to oversimplify things and say, well, all you have to do is eat less or eat more?
Yes. I think that we always think, just eat less and it'll come off. But we all know when we've tried to diet, it's a whole circle of things that we have to do. But I think, encouraging people to come to our exercise class has really seen an increase. We have a lot of people who come in for just our classes, and that in itself has been just a wonderful thing to experience and to see seniors talk about how they want to lose 5 pounds or how they want to gain some upper body strength or leg strength, also to just be able to stand up and get up without using their hands and things like that.
Well, when we talk about the American Medical Association recognizing obesity as a disease, it sort of shifts to a medical issue from what had been a social or a psychological issue. And this has important implications for older people because of Medicare. Medicare has had very, very limited coverage of behavioral therapies for weight management problems, and Medicare Part D, which covers prescription medications, does not cover weight management medications. Now, in May of 2015, a Treat and Reduce Obesity Act was introduced to both houses of Congress. It would allow Medicare Part D to cover weight management drugs, and it would expand the category of healthcare professionals who could treat overweight or underweight people. You think this is a good thing, Jen?
I think it's a wonderful thing. I do Medicare enrollments and help people with their drug plans, so I'm always a fan of anything that's going to help to continue to cover additional medications.
Anne, your feelings on that?
Yeah, sure. So, certainly, as we talked about, there are, a lot of other conditions that can accompany being overweight and obese. And so medications can be, necessary to control those specific conditions. So in terms of weight management medications, we note that those are effective. However, most of the time they're going to be recommended for short-term use and also to accompany a nutrition and exercise program. So I think it's important to note that these weight management medications can be helpful, but we want to make sure they accompany a healthy nutrition, a healthy diet, as well as some exercise.
I also just want to quickly add to the Silver Sneakers program. I think those are great opportunities and options that have recently been added to supplement plans through Medicare, Medicare Advantage plans, and those Silver Sneaker programs allow seniors to be able to go to gyms that maybe they couldn't have been able to afford before. So I think that's just another example of what we're trying to do in our community to increase healthier lifestyles.
So how would people access Silver Sneakers?
Well, they can check into their current Medicare supplement plans. They can look at their Medicare Advantage options and see if it's currently offered within what they're enrolled in. Or they could potentially look to change to another plan that offers that. If your plan doesn't offer that and it's not something you can afford to pay at a gym, then using your local senior center, either here or at Cove Creek, to be able to go and use their exercise equipment is also a great opportunity.
So one thing people can do if they would like to see expanded Medicare coverage for weight management issues is to contact their federal representatives and senators and say, hey, I vote, I want you to back this kind of bill.
Yeah, sure.
And let me ask you about this. Usually when we think about weight problems, weight management issues, especially those that come with aging, we do think about obesity. But what about what's called unintended weight loss? I think we've touched on this a little bit in terms of lifestyle changes, bringing this on. We also tend to see it with older people who live in institutional settings. Can you talk a little bit about weight loss and the kinds of problems that can bring about?
Yeah, sure. So unintentional weight loss certainly can be a problem as well, especially in sort of our older populations. We maybe don't think about it as much as we do being overweight or obese. I think just because it's not talked about as much and maybe just not recognized. So I think kind of the same principles are going to apply. Maintaining a healthy diet, for this person who maybe is a little bit underweight, we want to make sure they're getting enough nutrition, enough calories throughout the day. As well as maintaining some exercise as well. A lot of that weight loss is coming from just losing muscle. So maintaining some activity, whether it's walking, whether it's some light aerobics, some light weightlifting, can be beneficial in terms of keeping some muscle, which will help to keep a little bit of weight on as well.
Now, let me get back to body mass index, BMI, because if the public wants to know, is my weight in the right range or not, they're probably going to calculate their BMI. And you've mentioned that you can go online and find all these body mass index calculators. It's basically a relationship of your height to your weight. The formula is a little bit complicated because unlike the rest of the civilized world, we use inches and pounds instead of centimeters and kilograms. That's how it goes. But you can have two people. Let's say you have a man who's 6 feet tall and 240 pounds. Well, he could be obese, or he could be a bodybuilder.
Sure.
So, what are the problems with the body mass index, and does that mean that someone could have a BMI that's a little below normal or a little above normal and still be in good
Sure.
shape?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So BMI, what we find is that for the majority of the population, it's a pretty good measurement. It's not going to give us, all the information that we need in terms of body fat, in terms of muscle, but it gives us just a kind of a general idea in terms of whether a person's at a healthy weight or not. When we see BMI not being effective, it's going to be for usually our athletic population. So like you said, bodybuilders can be an example. People who have a lot of muscle mass or maybe a lower amount of muscle mass just sort of based on their body frame. So, we say for general population purposes, it's a pretty good measure. In terms of kind of those extreme conditions, that can be something to consult with a professional or physician about in terms of, determining specifically that person's risk.
Okay. I want to thank both our guests today, Jen Teague from the Lois Harrell Senior Center in Boone and Dr. Ann Moody from the Health and Exercise Science Department at Appalachian State. Whether we eat to live or live to eat, weight management is important. Our bodies do change, and so our weight will normally change as we age, but that doesn't mean that we lose control over it. There are senior centers, there are exercise scientists, there are healthcare professionals who can help us with that. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
That's AgeWise for this week. If you have questions or comments, you can reach us through our website at watchapptv.com. Until next time, I'm Ed Rosenberg.